because children rely on their parents to protect them. And if their parents are in a cult, and the parents are under the control of the cult leader, what you don't want to do is tell them, I think you're in a cult. Get out of that cult. Because that will then cause them to go running back to the group and say, this is what my mom told me. What do you think? Stop talking to your mother. Cut her off. She's an unbeliever. It's extremely rare that a person that I have successfully deprogrammed would join another group.
Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Sir JR po ng Usap Usap University. Mga ka-youth, we are back. Nagbabalik na naman po tayo dito sa ating regular show. At para po sa ating mga newcomers, sa mga baguhan ng ating pong ginagawa dito sa U3, tayo po ay nanonood ng mga religious videos, sermon, homily, Bible study, basta po mga religious videos na sinsend nyo po via Facebook, via YouTube. We watch your video requests. And for this particular episode, ito po ay actually part 2 na ng ating series. And the first part, of course, tapos na po natin mabigyan ng reaction. Hopefully, you have watched that. Nandyan po, sa ating I, yung meron pong I, andyan. So, click nyo na lang po yung button na yan para mapanood yung part 1. So, ito po ay part 2 ng interview ng Broccoli TV. At kanila pong interview na special guest ay ang Amerikano na si cult expert Rick Alan Ross, which na-mention ko po the last time na napanood ko na nga po even before sa kanyang guesting on cult deprogramming. Ayan. So ito po ay pagpapatuloy. So sa akin pong background sa pag-aanalisa, sa paghihimay, dati po akong university debater mula po sa MSU-IIT, nakapagdebate sa ABS-CBN News Channel, member ng International Public Speaking Organization at representante ng Pilipinas 2 beses sa komperensya na inorganisa ng Harvard University sa Amerika. So mga ka-youth, hindi ako member ng MCGI, hindi rin po ako member ng grupo dito po ni Broccoli TV. So as mentioned, ito po ay binigay sa atin na video request. So as a video reactor, we have to give our honest, genuine, and first-time reaction to this video. So let us watch this video and let's continue. Let's go.
It's over. It's ended, as is the bishop group. So I take some solace and some, joy, if you will, in the knowledge that these horrible, destructive cult leaders are now behind bars, and that I helped to put them there. And I've worked with the FBI, the BATF, and local law enforcement to bring certain cult leaders to justice, and they've been criminally prosecuted and convicted.
I have last question before we call Carmen up here. Is there a way, or if ordinary members can be deprogrammed, is there a way to deprogram the very leader?
No.
No.
No,
Nice
Catherine,
question.
because the leader has not been programmed. Who programmed the leader? Nobody programmed the leader. The leaders that I deal with are typically psychopaths. They're incredibly narcissistic. They have no empathy, very little sympathy for anyone other than themselves. They are, it seems to me, not programmed at all. They are just being who they are, which is not very nice people. And there's no way to change their basic personality or who they are. They are what they are. The people who have been brainwashed, who have been manipulated, who are under undue influence, that you can unpack, that you can unwind. But you cannot change someone who has never been programmed in the first place. And deprogramming is not about changing what people believe in the sense that it's against Christianity or Buddhism or Islam or whatever. It is about the control of the leader and the techniques of control that the leader has used to dominate, manipulate, and control his or her followers. It's unwinding that. And so when the group says, "Oh, you're against what we believe, you're against the Bible," no, it isn't about being against the Bible. It's about unpacking the way in which you have manipulated out of context verses in the Bible, perhaps, to show people how you are manipulating them through the abuse of the Bible, not attacking the Bible itself.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
let's call on Carmen. Go ahead, Carmen. Hi, Rick. I'm Carmen, not my real name. And I was with the cult for 24 years. I would like to apologize that I have to maintain my anonymity to protect myself and the after effects of leaving the cult. Now, you've intervened in over 500 deprogramming cases in various countries. After the deprogramming, what usually happens to the religious belief of the victims? What are the risks of joining another religion right after leaving the cult?
It's extremely rare that a person that I have successfully deprogrammed would join another group. I would say out of the 500 people, it would be a fraction of a percent out of the successful interventions. So what typically happens is the individual understands the warning signs. They understand how to define a destructive cult, how cults manipulate people, how coercive persuasion works. So if they come across another group or a leader that parallels or echoes those warning features, they will not join that group. So they really have become educated to become more aware of what to look for before becoming involved in another group. And typically, if they were a Christian before they were involved in the group, they will remain a Christian. If they were secular, perhaps, before they were in the group, they may end up being secular again. So typically, they'll go back to who they were before they were involved in the group. But the crucial piece of the recovery process is education. So the individual leaving the group does not feel shame and blame about their involvement, but instead understands what happened to them. And the way to do that is reading the literature about cults, about coercive persuasion and thought reform, so that you understand and you don't blame yourself.
Well, that's a very good answer. Actually, well, you mentioned earlier that former members need to be heard. And that is what this group is doing right now. And I really appreciate you coming over and talking in front of us. But the main problem we are facing right now is character assassination from the current members, which results to emotional distress, low morale, and depression. What is the most effective way for cult victims like us to handle shunning, character assassination, and other harsh actions from the cult and the members after leaving the cult?
Well, first of all, everybody doesn't have to become an activist. Many people leave cults, in fact, the overwhelming majority, silently. And they do not speak out. They do not talk about the group. Instead, they repair their lives. They get back into the workforce. They repair relationships with family and old friends. And that's okay. Everyone does not have to be an anti-cult activist that leaves a group. But for those people who choose to be, get ready. It's going to be a bumpy ride. It's not going to be nice. I mean, I've been sued 5 times by different groups because of information that I placed online about that particular group. And they said, either you take it down or we'll sue you. And I said, bring it on. And so they sued me. And I'm happy to say that I was able to get pro bono, meaning free, legal defense from generous attorneys in the U.S. who wanted to defend my First Amendment rights to freedom of speech. And in all those lawsuits, they were dismissed. They never went to trial because they were ridiculous lawsuits that were just harassment. You need to be aware that that can happen. You need to be careful. And when you speak out, people will attack you rather than address what you're saying. And for those people that are out there.
Okay, before we continue. So, ang tawag po natin sa argumentation, I think alam niyo na po ad hominem. These are personal attacks, kumbaga attacking the messenger and not the message, mga kayo-3. So far, as we're listening to the second part ng ating pong video reaction, one of the things na really stuck with me is, according nga dito nga kay Rick Allen Ross, na bumabalik pala yung isang tao na under sa isang destructive cult. Pagkatapos na ma-realize niya na open na yung kanyang eyes, ayan, babalik din po pala siya most of the time sa kung sino siya, and maybe after patching things up, kumbaga picking up the broken pieces of her or himself, And a very interesting question din yung nabigay kanina dito ni Catherine na patungkol sa mga actual na mga cult leaders. So meron bang deprogramming sa kanila? And the answer of Rick Ross, by the way, it's very quick din na pagsagot niya. So talagang it really shows to us yung kanyang actual na experience. And then he said na hindi na sila dinideprogram dahil sila mismo hindi naman sila na program by themselves, because when they are the cult leaders, they they establish the programming. And most of the time, they are psychopaths, narcissists, and then that's just who they are. Very interesting po na sagot, which actually kind of makes sense. Initially, I was thinking that maybe they could also be deprogrammed, pero it turned out na that's who they really are. So what are the risks then kapag ikaw ay nagmula sa isang kulto or isang religious organization and then you decided to attack them back or be an activist, an anti-cult activist daw? So very bumpy ride mga ka-U3. And I believe I have mentioned this too sa atin po mga past na mga video reactions. One of the things na very common no na na-notice natin is kapag ang isang member ay umalis na or nag-speak out against isang particular na bigger group, most of the time they will be attacking this person saying that ganito yung ginawa niya talaga kaya yan tiniwalag or meron niyang malaking kasalanan, something like that. Wala akong narinig ng kind words sa isang tao mula sa religious organization towards a person na kumbaga nag-protest, nag-speak up or nag-complain about that church. It seemed to me na para siyang defense mechanism mga ka-U3. Anyway, let's continue.
That are listening to what ex-members say and are saying, oh, well, I don't want to listen to that person because the group told me this, that, or the other about them. You need to ask yourself, why is the group attacking that individual rather than responding to the issues that they are raising about the group? And when a group attacks people personally rather than responding to what they're saying, that is a giveaway. It tells you that the group is afraid to address the real issues. They don't want to respond to the allegations about them and about their behavior. So they choose instead to attack people on a personal level.
That's very true. Thank you, Rick.
It's called ad hominem. Ad hominem.
Yes, ad hominem attacks. I'm very used to them. It's part of my day-to-day life.
Yeah, it's
Okay, go, Adel.
I have in connection with the deprogramming because all of us here we believe that we are in a cult. No, in our previous leader, we believe that we conclude that they are cult leaders. No, but recently,
time.
Catherine, Adel is speaking.
Oh,
I think
sorry.
you're losing your internet connection. Go ahead, Adel.
I noticed some people have recently. Some people have left our cult, but they still hold on they still cling to the teachings of the former our court leader because they still continue to romanticize his so-called good deeds and believe that he was a messenger of God. So don't you think that is a good part of a deprogramming to still hold on the teachings of a cult leader?
Adele, it depends. No group is completely bad, and especially groups that are based on the Bible. Much of what they teach, for example, the Ten Commandments, can be good ways to live your life. And also when you're in the group, you meet very idealistic, caring, dedicated people, the membership of the group, who you recognize as being good and kind and caring people. And you think that was good. The friends I had in the group who were caring, compassionate, cared about other people.
The relationship that you
wanted to serve God, even though it meant personal sacrifice. Those are good qualities. So there's no such thing as a group that is totally bad. And I would say that that groups what you see is kind of a toxic brew. That is that the group is concocting itself, and in that concoction is the poison, the coercive persuasion, the manipulation, the thought reform. But much of what you're being taught from the Bible appears to be good and is good, and people want to hang on to that. Also, I think that when people leave a group, they may leave for a particular reason. They saw something that was shocking. There was something that happened that was just contradictory to what they thought the group was all about. And so they left, or they were just simply exhausted and thought that they couldn't handle the demands of the group anymore.
Burned out.
So they haven't really fully unpacked everything. And that's why it's so important to do some reading and to understand. And for those people that are former members of a particular cult that are maybe further along in their recovery process, be compassionate, be caring about the people that aren't as far along as you are, and help them. recognize that they're still working on unpacking what happened to them in the group, and share with them how you were able to do it, but in a caring and kind way, without judging them and telling them, oh, you're stupid. Why can't you see what I see? And instead say, look, I think this book could help you. It helped me. And when I wrote Cults Inside Out, I specifically wrote it for that reader, so that I start out with the historical accounts of many groups, and you hear the voices or you read the statements of former cult members explaining what it was like in the group, what happened to them, and you can begin to pick up on a consistent narrative of how these groups are structured, how they indoctrinate people. And then you get to the chapters on cult brainwashing, defining a destructive cult, and then you move on to the individual chapters about individual deprogramming cases. And then there's a chapter on recovery. And throughout the book, there are about more than 1,000 research footnotes and an 18-page bibliography, so that you can drill down and get even more information if there's a particular part of the book that's footnoted that you want to know more about. So I designed the book, if you will, to be a kind of deprogramming, that if you read it from chapter 1 through the end, there are 500 pages. you can deprogram yourself, because all deprogramming really is education. And once you become aware, once you're educated, you can think your way through and out of the indoctrination and control of the group.
Yes, I think we are on the right path. That's what we are doing right now, educating our fellow members. That's why we invited you here. That's why you are here. Thank you, Rick. And my last question, Rock, regarding on the support group. Rick, we consider our group as a support group, this podcast, and also on our Reddit. But how can we avoid turning into a cult or being seen as one?
Accountability. I mean, you can have
good question.
You can have a constitution with bylaws, have an elected board that serves fixed terms, and have checks and balances so that no one has that kind of power. Democratic governance, as opposed to one charismatic leader who tells everybody what to do. So what you see in most of the churches in the United States is democratic governance, democracy being the way that the denomination is run. Even the Pope is elected. Pope Leo was just elected. So there is an election within the Roman Catholic
Interesting.
Church.
So if you remember in part 1, I think I did mention it na kumbaga, most of the religions that we know actually started out as cults too. And that's why early on sa atin, hindi lang po dito for this video or the part 1, na-mention na rin po natin dahil series po ito, no? Part po ito ng series na perspective ng iba't ibang religions on what a cult is or whether they consider themselves as cults or not. So na-mention ko po sa past video reaction, what are those characteristics para masabi natin ang samahan ay isang kulto. And I even posited the question whether people may consider Roman Catholic Church too as a cult given that the Pope is infallible. So here's a sinabi dito ni Rick Allen Ross. I think it's more clear na kapag merong demokratikong proseso sa isang grupo, no, na may board of directors sila, meron silang paraan ng fixed na accountability, fixed terms para sa mga in position sa kanilang administration. And siguro hindi siya parang nepotism or hindi siya family run organization, ayan, na kung saan walang checks and balances, no? And merong authoritarianism, merong authoritarian rule na nangyayari, definitely that's not a cult. So because of what Rick Allen said, meron akong tanong actually, meron ba siyang may bibigay na example? And hopefully he does, no? Kasi hindi pa naman to natatapos or hindi pa naman patapos itong video. Meron bang halimbawa ng especially sa Amerika, isang kulto na nag-transform na over time na siguro dati they're authoritarian and then over time nag-change sila into democratic na naman na pamamaraan, no, ng kanilang sistema. Meron po bang ganon? Sa inyo po, sa mga nag-research po dyan about religion, mga theologians po natin na mga ka-U3, meron po ba kayong alam or ma-recall na ganyan pong nangyari? Na nagbagong buhay ang cult. And sa mga nagtatanong po dito sa ating screen ngayon, si Catherine and then the other one was Carmen, no, if I'm not mistaken, and then the other one was Adele. What I believe is former members din po sila ng MCGI. So as mentioned, I think lahat po na nandito sa Broccoli Podcast former members ng MCGI, and of course some of them, they protected themselves, no, their identities, kasi nga alam natin na hindi po madali ito pong pag-alis sa isang particular na group, and according to them, some of the members ng ex-MCGI support group ay naka-experience nga po ng threats, no, intimidation or character assassination. But anyway, let's continue this one.
There is accountability there. The leaders I deal with that are cult leaders, they aren't elected. They don't serve fixed terms. There's no way to deal with them. And another aspect is there's no financial transparency. So that the group doesn't tell you where all the money goes and provide an independently audited financial statement of their budget that shows how money is spent, who's receiving compensation, etc. So the best way to keep a group from being a cult is to have checks and balances, have democratic governance, and have transparency.
Adele, very good.
Yeah, thank you. Rick?
Okay, I want to make sure I ask this. Let's back up a little bit, because I want to feel good about this and feel validated. I want to hear from Rick if my previous religion is a cult. Doomsday prediction, for me, this is so extreme. This Filipino church, the leader said in the 90s that within 10 years, 15 years, 20 years max, the Great Tribulation will come. And that had terrible effects on its members. Some members didn't pursue their studies. Some sold their properties and donated to the church and for the use of money to spread the word of God in the last moments. Obviously, this doomsday didn't happen. Rick, can you please validate my feelings?
Well, yeah, doomsday predictions are routinely used by some groups to leverage power and control. So what they tell you is the end of the world is coming and we are your insurance policy. When the end comes, you're going to be okay because you're with us. And if you're not, you'll be sorry. And so the clock is ticking. It creates a sense of urgency, like an emergency. I need to deal with this. I can't wait. I must make decisions quickly. And not necessarily well thought through because I'm being pressured so intensely. Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, have predicted the end of the world 4 times. And 4 times it didn't happen. But did they get more people to join? Yes. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses today, I would not regard as a cult because they do not have a single totalitarian absolute leader.
There you go, mga kayuti. Pause muna tayo, Rick Allen. I'm very happy. As I was saying earlier, I was hoping na merong kulto according sa, of course, sa kanilang pag-uusap and according sa standard ni Rick Allen na nag-transform into a non-cult na. Very interesting. Jehovah's Witnesses. Itong sinasabi dito ni Rick Allen. Wow. Okay, let's continue. I'm excited.
They have what's called a governing body. But did Jehovah's Witnesses start as a destructive cult? In my opinion, yes. They had their founder, Charles Russell. Then they had Judge Rutherford, who succeeded Russell, who was an absolute dictator. But after that, power devolved to a governing body that is not elected by the general membership, but rather seats are filled by the governing body appointing someone to fill a seat. So it's still a very authoritarian group. It's still very destructive. And one of the ways that they expanded and were able to control people was through doomsday predictions. So what you see in many groups that have been called cults is a doomsday prediction. That was what David Koresh was telling his people. The day of judgment is coming.
Very common.
The world will be judged by me. I will be the judge. And if you are not right with me and in our group, you are going to hell. And so this created unreasonable fear in the minds and the hearts of the people in the group that they were afraid to leave because the world would come to an end. They would not be in the chosen group. They would be punished for not being there. And therefore they were afraid to leave. So many times people will say, well, why don't those people leave? Why don't they just get out? I mean, aren't they physically able to leave? Yes. But in their mind, they have unreasonable fears about leaving, which are not seen, but those are the chains that hold them. Though that is the prison they're in. It's a mental prison, and it's based on fear.
Thank you, Rick. Carmen, go ahead.
I have one question here from our viewer from YouTube. So what advice would you give to someone who suspects a loved one is in a cult but fears pushing them away?
First of
Good
all,
question.
don't push them away. Keep listening to them. Tell them that you care about them. Make sure that they understand that you are there for them, that you love them, that you are concerned. Do not criticize the group. Make negative comments. Attack the leader. Instead, reaffirm your relationship with that person. What you want is for them to feel that you are always going to be there. So if they decide to leave the group, they know they have somewhere to go. Don't let the group vilify you as an unbeliever who cannot be trusted, who cannot be loved, but instead show that you are not judging and you are loving. And if they have doubts, listen to that. And at some point, you may decide to do an intervention, or you may decide to share a book with someone that is in a questionable group in a way that is very carefully thought through. What you don't want to do is tell them, I think you're in a cult. Get out of that cult. Because that will then cause them to go running back to the group and say, this is what my mom told me. What do you think? Stop talking to your mother. Cut her off. She's an unbeliever.
Right.
Well, my friend told me that you're a cult. Cut him off. Cut him off. So if you don't say those things and you're more careful, you're more cautious, and you develop a strategy, and I have a whole chapter in my book called Coping Strategies for Families to Consider. You keep your line of communication open, and you maintain your access to your family member, because that could be their only hope of leaving, is knowing that you're there, knowing that you love them and that your love is unconditional.
Oh, thank you. Last question. What can you advise to those people who cannot forgive themselves because they blame themselves for falling victim to the cult?
That's too bad.
You need to ask yourself this. Did I really know what this group was really all about in the beginning? Did the group deceive me? Did they tell me everything that they would expect from me? If they were deliberately deceptive and the leader lied and the leader misrepresented what he is, what the group is, am I really to blame for that? How am I to blame for that? It's kind of like a woman who is in an abusive, controlling relationship. Her husband beats her up repeatedly. Is it her fault? Should she say, I had it coming. I deserved that beating? No. What the woman should think is no man should beat up his wife. And extreme raging and screaming and carrying on is not the way to resolve disagreements or to put across what you feel should take place. So stop blaming yourself. Recognize who is really to blame. The predator, the abuser is to blame, not the person who is being abused. And to some extent, blaming yourself is what the group programmed you to think, programmed you to feel. It was always your fault. It could never be the leader's fault. It could never be the group's problem. It was always, if you're not happy, it must be you, because it can never be us. So by continuing to feel that way and blaming yourself, you're perpetuating, you're continuing the programming. Stop thinking in those ways. Look for the literature that can help you to recognize how you were manipulated so that you can get out of the loop, because that is a very destructive loop to be in, where you're going to feel really bad and it's not in your best interest to continue.
Oh, well said, Rick. Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Oliver.
What is your opinion on revenge? How do you know if it's already the right time to hold a cult accountable for abuse, financial exploitation, or psychological harm?
Okay, let's pause here a little bit. So, nakita niyo po bang reaction ni Rick Allen when he was asked about revenge? So, napa-smile, no? That was a really nice reaction. But gusto ko lang po i-mention just a little bit of recap before we continue here with the question of Oliver. So, sinabi dito kanina ni Rick Allen as his continuation dun nga po sa pag-transform. And he gave an actual example, yung Jehovah's Witnesses nga po, na for him, he really believed that when it started, it was a destructive cult. But then, no, nagkaroon ng devolution, nag-devolve, and mga kayo-3, this really, kumbaga, struck some strings sa akin itong term na devolution, dahil ito po ay political term din. Ang ibig sabihin po nito is ang pag-separate ng centralization ng power. For example, if you make some regional centers or autonomous na mga regional centers instead of just having one city or one region that holds the seat of power. Ang tawag po dyan is devolution. So it's the same, no, na characteristic din po on the democratization of a religious organization, na split mo yung kapangyarihan. Hindi lamang ito nagmula sa isang pamilya, nagmula sa iilan, kundi mas maganda na dapat meron silang eleksyon, merong board, something like that. Maganda din yung sinabi dito na tip ni Rick Allen as to how do you respond to a person kung meron kang loved one, for example, na alam mo ay nasa destructive cult. So sinabi ni Rick Allen, don't criticize their group. Pero sa totoo lang, sa Pilipinas especially, mahirap po yan, no? Dahil sa Philippines, ang ating pong tendency is head-on, we say, you are in danger. That is a cult. Or that group is dangerous. It's not good for your health. Or wala ka mapapala dyan, something like that. So Rick is saying here na, don't criticize. Don't say that they are in a cult. Instead, what you have to do as a kind of support to someone that you think is in a cult, no? Be there, reaffirm your relationship. Ayan. You have to show that you care, that you listen. Ano po? Pero I think pwedeng two-prong ang magiging reaction dito eh. Parang kumbaga, as a reaction, pwedeng dalawang paraan in my view. Ano? Pwede mo sigurong yung another group of people that are concerned would be kind. Ito nga yung sinasabi ni Rick Allen na hindi mag-criticize, reaffirming the relationship. But I think another group could also do the other way. Kumbaga, the opposite, which is to attack, to protest. Kasi sinabi nga ni Rick Allen, di ba, na it's not bad to protest, but of course, not everyone who leaves the cult would be an activist na agad, an anti-cult activist. And one more thing, yung pagiging prison ng mind ng tao. Yan ang pinakamahirap na prison, mga kayo. Sabi nga ng part 1 natin, no one really would say and believe that they are in a cult when they are in a cult. So physically daw, pwede ka namang tumakas, di ba? Pwede ka tumakbo, pwedeng wag ka nang magsimba, pwedeng wag ka nang mag-join ng kanilang mga Bible study or something like that. But then, the most difficult na kind of prison that stops you is your own mind, mga kayo. And deprogramming is all about education. So if you get the right education, you realize that you actually learn more about this group. So it kind of makes you now more aware whether to leave that group or not.
I believe in forgiveness rather than revenge. So let me qualify that though. First of all, if the group is doing something criminal, for example, they're abusing children, they're sexually exploiting members, they're engaged in financial fraud, they're doing things that are criminal, that should be brought to the attention of law enforcement, child protective services, etc. Forgiveness does not mean looking the other way when people are being criminally and horribly preyed upon by a particular group. What I think forgiveness does for a person that was in an abusive controlling relationship or in a destructive cult, it gives you the ability to just let go of the abusive group, of the abusive partner, because do you want to keep thinking about that and dwelling on that for the rest of your life? Lessons can be learned. Okay, there are bad groups out there. There are bad people out there. Forgiveness doesn't mean saying, I forgive you and I want you to be my friend forever, or I want to still visit and be a part of this group. What forgiveness means is recognizing, okay, this is a destructive cult. It's probably not going to change. This leader is a psychopath. He's probably not going to change. I forgive you for being what you are. I let you go. I move on. And I don't think it's fair to characterize revenge in the same way as accountability. So, for example, bringing the group and its bad behavior to the attention of the proper authorities is not revenge. It's justice. That's what it's called, justice. And having testified against cult leaders and helped to put them behind bars, I didn't do it because I had a sense of revenge. I did it because they were criminals, and what they did was criminal, and they hurt people horribly, and they deserve to be held accountable. So there's a difference between revenge and accountability, and also there's a difference between forgiveness and letting go, and forgiveness and allowing the harm to continue. So I'm not advocating forgiveness to the extent of, oh, I forgive the leader, I forgive the group, and I'll put up with whatever they do to me. No, I'm saying at some point you may want to forgive them for being what they are, who they are, so you can move on more easily.
All right, perfect answer. Thank you so much. Guys, we're at our closing phase. Gadel, do you have any more questions? Catherine?
Last one, what is Rick, your advice can you give to someone who wants to leave a cult?
advice most to leave?
If you wish to leave the group, consider it carefully. Make sure that you can do so safely. Take into consideration if, for example, if you have family members that are in the group, you may want to wait until you can all leave together so that your family can remain whole. Leah Remini, a celebrity who left the Church of Scientology, was able to do that. And people who leave groups are concerned about that because the group may tell your family members to shun you, to refuse to have anything to do with you if you leave. So you want to consider leaving carefully. How can I do that and do it with my family if my family is in the group? And how can I leave and leave safely?
Thank you, Rick.
All right. Catherine, any more questions?
Yes. Just one last question. Because a lot of cult members are still what I consider that they're already awakened and realize, oh, I'm in a cult, but they can't leave. So they are like hiding in this closet. What is your tips, advice for them to stay safe inside the closet?
That is a really tough one. I get emails and phone calls from people like that who will say, I'm in this group, but I'm afraid to leave because my family and my
Are also still
close
members.
friends are in the group, or because the group employs me and I'll lose my job. I don't, and the group houses me, I'll lose my housing. What I would say is make sure that you are not involved in anything criminal. I mean, if you are in a group and the group is involved in financial fraud, physical abuse, sexual abuse, in some way they are in violation of the law. Make sure that you are outside of that. Don't stay in a group and allow them to involve you in anything criminal, because the law enforcement authorities will not consider that. That is that you were staying because you were worried about your family, and yet you were also involved in something
Doing
criminal.
yeah.
You will be prosecuted. So be careful not to be involved in anything the group does to hurt people or that could be criminal. And that could be very difficult because many of the groups that we're talking about, harming people is a daily occurrence. I mean, they're harming people every day, particularly children are very vulnerable because children rely on their parents to protect them. And if their parents are in a cult and the parents are under the control of the cult leader, they are not reliable for protection. Because if the leader says do something, they're going to do it, even if it might be detrimental to their children. And I would say that's another very strong red line or boundary, is if the group is asking you to do something or allow something that may harm your children, you need to get out and you need to pull your children out, and you need to plan that in such a way as to basically save them from being hurt by the group, because no one deserves to be hurt by such a group, and certainly not helpless children.
Thank you.
All right. Carmen, anything you want to say?
I'm all good, but I see one more question here. I'm trying to scroll out the question. I'll write back. You first. Let me just find the question. I lost it. Sorry.
I don't have any more questions. Maybe we should close it.
Yeah. Okay.
Rick, thank you so much. This is a fantastic episode. Probably our best episode so far. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. This episode will be shared all over the world and will help a lot of people. Is there anything you want to say as your final statement for today?
Yeah.
I would say that there is an enormous amount of information online, and that people can go to culteducation.com. They can take advantage of that database. There are other databases also online. There's a links page at culteducation.com where it links to many, many websites that can be helpful. That people, anyone with a smartphone, you are only a few touches away from help. That there is help for you online, that there is help for you at the public library, typically with books there. Don't suffer alone. Reach out. Find sources that can help you to better understand your situation and recover and move on.
Thank you. Where can people reach you? Social media accounts?
I have a Twitter account, which is Rick Allen Ross on Twitter, or X as it's now known. And there's also a Facebook page for the Cult Education Institute that can easily be found. And people can just email me, rickross@culteducation.com. And you can easily access me through email at culteducation.com.
Wow. Thank you so much. And your book right here, Cults Inside Out. Please, guys, buy it. It's so worth it. Thank you so much, Rick. We'll see you again next podcast. And have a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay, mga ka-youthy, so dyan po nagtatapos ang ating episode ngayon. Well, I remember, every time po, hindi lang po dito from the perspective of ex-MCGI members, maging sa iba din po ng mga episode ng series natin about cults, is we often get a kind of negative reaction, of course, from the members concerned. And this is something that is understandable. But the goal of the series is to get different perspectives, viewpoints on how they see themselves. In fact, other groups accept the fact that they are quote-unquote cults. Some also do not believe na totally negative yung word na kulto. Meron din naman so far sa ating mga napanood na past na mga series din about cults. Some are not as destructive as people think. Pero yun nga, no, we're looking into the standards of Rick Allen Ross. Ano nga ba sa kanya ang criteria ng pagiging isang kulto? And we've mentioned a lot of those sa part 1. And I also mentioned yung, if you remember, sa ICSA, no, International Cultic Studies Association, kung di ako nagkakamali, na makikita na din natin yung overlap, no, ng similarities ng mga telltale signs na isang grupo nga ay isang destructive cult. Pero gusto ko lang po i-recap yung mga sa last parts na po, ano, dahil sinasabi dito ni Rick Allen na hindi dapat tayo magkamali sa idea ng revenge at idea ng justice, like especially for his perspective na hindi naman siya member ng church na ito. So wala siyang revenge, no, na parang kinakailangan niyang gantihan itong mga grupo na ito na kanyang dinodeprogram or kumbaga ini-expose, but it's more about justice. Ito ay concern and asking for accountability, especially pag meron ng mga crimes na nangyayari. So, na-notice ko din sa mga sinasabi ni Rick Allen, ang pinaka-common na ginagawa nito mga destructive cults, quote-unquote, is either financial fraud, no? Siguro more on income generation. Ayan, ng group na maaaring borderline kalokohan, borderline criminal, ayan. And then, yung abuses nga, physical abuse and then sexual abuse, mga ka-youth. And may dinagdag din pala si Rick Allen na isa sa mga red flags na malalaman mo, ay, ito destructive cult. Ito, kapag napuput ang children in danger. Ano po, kapag yung mga anak nyo pinapagawa sa inyo hindi na maganda or offer nyo inyong mga anak sa supreme leader natin. So totally red flag na rin po yan. And as to further tips, no, kung ikaw ay member nitong isang particular na group na you think is a cult, so highly recommended na you leave as a family. Kasi nga, kung segmented yung pag-leave na siguro sister lang yung aalis and then the other brothers or father or grandfather are still there, it's very, very tough, no? Kasi nga, syempre, sasabihan lang yung isang person ng church na, o tinamong ginawa ng sister mo na umalis sa grupo natin, cut your relationship off. That's the best way, no? Kasi i-influensyahan ka lang niya, mga makamundo, yan, mga demonyo na wala na, na-brainwash sila ng demonyo, so you have to stay here and protect yourself and kumbaga, have yourself saved exclusively dito sa ating religion, you know, something like that. So, syempre mga ka-youth, hindi ko na po maulit lahat, no? Dahil ito po ay part 2 na ng aking mga interjections since part 1 pa po, no? So, this is the part 2. I'm very glad to have heard this. I think one of the main points, of course, is that deprogramming. It's very important for you to know. Information is the key for you to make better decisions for yourself if you think that you are inside a cult. So have more education. Read more about those information. Kasi most of the time, these cults will be saying, wag kang mag-research. No, wag kang tumingin sa mga forum or wag kang tumingin sa mga online videos katulad ng Usap Usap University. But anyway, mga ka-youth, maraming salamat po sa panonood. If you like these kinds of contents, you already know what to do. You can watch the video over there, playlist over here, and then subscribe kung hindi ka pa subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Bye-bye. See you later.